Hey, everybody, welcome to Mat Men, a very special episode. I love doing these. I love it when I have a guest on, especially if I like the guest and I know the guest. See, they're laughing here. I'm looking at my screen. It is professional wrestling is a very funny business, especially if you cover professional wrestling. I can't compare it to any other sport as far as media coverage because I don't cover any other sport, so I don't know. But I do have a real journalist here, unlike myself. The one, the only, Mr. Nick Hausman is joining me here today. Hey, how you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Thank you so much.
You know, I thought it would be a perfect time for you to come on. And we've been talking for a while now about just everything that's happening in wrestling, and I send you some stuff that I hear, and we talk about it. But it is not an easy task. It's fun, it's rewarding at times, but it's not easy, especially if you really pride yourself on being correct with what you're reporting.
Yeah, no, it is not easy. When you have like a normal job, like I used to work at a deli. I used to work at a Whole Foods deli, and I would show up and I was really good at slicing meat and cheese and selling that meat and cheese, and I'd show up every day knowing exactly what I was going to do. When you're in this world of pro wrestling journalism, you don't always go to bed knowing what you're going to be doing tomorrow. You don't really know what that next story is going to be. You don't really know what it is that you're going to be doing. So when I have a hot hand going and I'm breaking a lot of big news, it's usually when I get really nervous and I put my head down to go to sleep because I hope that the next day is as good as the day as I'm having, because it's not always the case.
Yeah, a lot of information also changes, unlike a lot of other... like in finance, things like that don't shift. They don't change. With wrestling, a lot of it can change, and it becomes a little bit more difficult. What's your process like? Do you have like a regiment that you follow weekly? Like, on Mondays you'll reach out to these people, or Tuesdays you'll do this. Do you have to be disciplined with that?
There's definitely certain people, on certain days when things come up where I know people are around, I'm hitting people up. I really love my routine right now. Cheap plug. I get to do this show, Rumor and Innuendo, noon Eastern. It's ad-free show's first daily pro wrestling news show, half hour. Me and former WWE writer Robert Carpeles, and it gives me a chance to look over the news every morning, put together a run sheet, get to know what's going on, and figure out what I want to be asking questions about that day. If I see a story where I'm like, ooh, I think I can get more info here, or this doesn't sound quite right to me, I have a few questions of my own. That's when I start reaching out to people. And it's like in the mornings, just like old school, like you see in the black and whites, right? Popping the newspaper open, looking what's out there, looking what people are talking about. And then you just go out there and you start asking questions and try to provide the best insight you can into what, people are interested in.
Yeah, right now, the big topic, right? CM Punk. And
what?
By the way, I don't know if you heard this. He's in WWE now.
What?
And
wow.
Some may say you may be responsible for this. I don't know.
Whoa, he's back. That's back. So cool.
Better than ever.
Okay,
but that probably in my time of covering wrestling, that really was one of the most tumultuous. Is he or isn't he? From the time of him going to AEW to the time of debuting in WWE, and I'm sure the story's going to continue, right? I can't imagine it now being this non-event of a story, the CM Punk Chronicle over the last couple of years. But is that one of the big ones for you too, as far as just covering? AEW's launch was tremendous, also, but I wasn't knee deep in this stuff as much as I am now. But what has it been like for you? Is that one of the big ones?
What, Punk?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the House of Wrestling is built on a CM Punk cement foundation, I think. I think that the C and the CM, it's cement. It's what we're put our actual foundation on. To where we've made, it's that and Billy Corgan in the NWA, I think, is what the House is built on these days. I have been very privileged to cover not just Punk, but AEW, really since the inception, since Punk coming back. We didn't have the press access that exists today before AEW launched. It was a very, very different landscape for the media. I think one of the things that Tony Khan doesn't get enough credit for is opening the business up significantly more to the media. And because of that, when Punk came back, I was already right in the mix, and I was able to cover that story, his return, from the very, very beginning. And of course, I had covered his trial a couple years earlier, watched him in Cabana in court with Dr. Aman. And even before that, he was coming to my improv shows while he was WWE champion. So I've had a chance to cover CM Punk's career very, very, very closely for over a decade now. And this, it just never stops, man. Now we're here in WWE, and it's just going to be different. It's going to be a different vibe, and I'm as excited to see as anybody how this latest CM Punk chapter plays out.
Do you think this is a hit to AEW? As far as, fundamentally, as far as the optics of that company go and people's perception of that company, do you think it's obviously it's a short-term hit, but do you think it'll be a long-term issue for them that they had him and they let him go?
You got to make your weaknesses your strengths, right? And AEW is in this moment right now where I think people are actively looking at them, right? There's all this going on. There's this kind of doubt that you're talking about right now. And so while people are looking at you, you got to deliver strong. I thought that the Devil's angle with Max on Wednesday night did a really good job of creating a lot of speculation, a lot of interest, right? And it has nothing to do with I guess it kind of did, because Max decided he wanted to drop Punk's name in it, but that wasn't the thing people were talking about coming out of that. I think Adam and Christian also was very strong. I'm not totally sold on the Continental Classic. I'm sold on Swerve Strickland right now. Yeah. I don't know that the tournament thing is really, you hear, another tournament match is coming up. It just kind of starts to come into a rhythm for me. But the other stuff where they're getting a little creative, they're getting pushed right now. Maybe this makes them better. I'm going to try to remain optimistic like that.
Yeah, listen, I'm pretty honest about how I feel. I watch SmackDown. I enjoy it. I watch the pay-per-views. I very much enjoy it. I have difficulty with Raw. I know NXT is good when I turn it on. It's much better than it was with NXT 2.0, but I can't commit to it as much as I can. But AEW, I'm able to balance that into my life because the match qualities is what I like. I like to see Bryan Danielson go 45 minutes and just do rest holds. I'm okay with that. If you want to give me that, I'm fine with it. So I really think it comes down to what are you looking for? Like my kids, they love WWE. They watch a little AEW, but they're watching WWE because it's bright and it's loud and it's an institution. With today, going into 2024, and we'll talk about TV deals and what a fascinating moment this is for the business. Where do you see this year headed? Do you think it's we're going to be in a upturn for AEW? Obviously we saw a little bit of a downturn with perception and viewership and things like that, but where do you see this headed for both companies?
Well, Andrew, I think this is where our paths meet, right? The TV rights are going to have a big part of that. WWE, they've locked down where SmackDown's going. They've locked down where NXT's going. It sounds like, based off of what we're hearing, what you're reporting, right, what you've heard, that WWE's closing in on some kind of TV rights deal, hopefully, or not hopefully, but maybe by the end of this year. And so if they're able to wrap up 2023 with their TV rights affairs in order going into the next year, that's a pretty strong footing going into next year. Yeah. Tony Khan's going to be walking into 2024 trying to find that same firm footing. Whatever that deal looks like that he gets next is going to dictate, the strength of AEW for the next many years. I think that's a pretty safe analysis of it, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Dave today in the Observer, or yesterday's Observer, did it come today or yesterday? I can't remember.
It comes out Friday at a very, very early.
Very early. I think Dave doesn't sleep. He's a vampire. I don't know if you know this.
I did.
He writes the Observer. He types it up upside down, hanging in the middle of the night. It's unbelievable.
I've watched them bring him in via casket with the earth from Transylvania in it. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just sheets of old Observers in there, and he just that's how he references everything. It's unbelievable to see. I've seen it in person. I saw it in Chicago. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've seen Triple H. He keeps a wooden stake in his boot just for Dave. It's wild. He's ready.
You know
for
what?
him.
Is he a vampire too? Is that I don't know if you know this. I fan fiction all my favorite wrestlers as vampires.
Wasn't he in Blade? Wasn't Triple H in Blade?
Triple H was in Blade. So there you go. It's all canon. It all connects.
I know way too much about pro wrestling.
I think you and I both. The absurd amount of bizarre knowledge I'm consuming, and I've lost memory in other things just so I could retain that. It's terrible. I can't remember what I ate yesterday, but I can tell you what happened in 1996 at Survivor Series.
There you
What
go.
happened in 1996 at Survivor Series? I don't think it was a good one.
96 Survivor Series. That was the year before Brett, so that was what that was while the Hart Foundation was feuding with everybody. So
Yeah,
it would have
yeah.
been that wasn't the Canadian Stampede. That wasn't a Survivor Series. Was
No,
it?
but that pay-per-view was fantastic.
Wasn't that 96 or was that early 97?
Maybe it was 96. Early 97. Has to be early 97.
Okay, so anyway, that's why I say there's probably something Hart Foundation-y going on at 96 Survivor Series.
You know, today Dave posted that Nick Khan went to WBD and pitched possibly getting some of their products on there, and they were declined. Now, I've said this from day one. Nobody once has said to me, and with a little bit of a disclaimer here, I kind of step away from wrestling in the winter. It's my very busy. I was talking to Nick about this. It's my busy season with all my clients. So
Sure.
I'm not as tapped in, but the WBD stuff I've been very tapped into. And the AW stuff I've been very tapped into, and TV rights stuff. That's kind of what I hear more than anything else. I never heard once that they were interested in WWE. One time in passing, I was told, well, we would have to be dumb to publicly say, no, we would never listen. We're always going to listen. Which that's every business. I mean, that was a non-answer to me. That was, if you have someone, you're not looking to hire someone, Nick. I'm not looking to hire a new host, but you come to me with a great idea. And I'm like, man, this Nick is so impressive. And he's great. I'll probably have him on. 96 was Rock debut. It was the Garden. And you know what? I was there, and that's why I said 96. So I should have remembered this.
Okay.
That I should have remembered. It was HBK and Sid in the main.
Oh, was that no? Because it was the San Antonio Rumble where they had Jose Lothario.
Yeah, that was the boot spot, right?
Yeah.
So I this is something that I hear. I never once was told that WBD is looking to dump AEW. Out of all the partners, right? The synergy amongst Fox and WWE, NBC and WWE, Peacock, you put them in the bubble. I hear obviously positivity and rah-rah, but not to the extent of what I hear from the WBD side. I generally hear very protective conversations about it. It's not like you're hearing people like, well, this is garbage. This is, we need to get WWE in here. Nobody in that company I've ever heard anything negative. I've never heard any personal interest in WWE. It's possible. I mean, and I said this on Twitter. Is it possible they would? Yeah, anything is possible. Positioning changes, situations change in TV and wrestling and media and entertainment. But I never was once told. I was always told word for word, we are very committed to AEW and its products, and we would like to add more if allowed, if the stars align.
I mean, I believe all that.
And it's fascinating to me. And sometimes people come up like, well, you're just defending AEW. I don't have any financial benefit from any of this happening. I know people. I'm friends with people due to unique job opportunities that I got. I just found it so interesting how people were so immediately, well, that's it for the AEW. WBD's in. And it didn't come from you. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from Dave. It didn't come from Sean. It didn't come from Mike Johnson or any name. And I threw my name in there just because I'm in the WWE. I say this, I'm not a journalist. I'm a media personality. It's a little muggy. It's a little It's I don't fancy myself a journalist.
Oh, come on now.
I'm just going to constantly do it. Do you think he had muffins there with him? He should have. He should have brought muffins for everybody.
I mean, I have to believe he had some Mindy's Bakery in his bag.
But why do you think that catches on fire? Is it that it's such a wow, shocking story when an account tweets it? And again, listen, man, it could happen. This person, whoever originated that tweet, They could know something that none of us have heard. And I would applaud it. I would say, wow, that's a great get because nobody else had it. But why do you think it catches on fire so quickly?
I think the pro wrestling journalism, the churn rate for news is really, really high. So, I've noticed in other mediums, you get a lot more long form pieces. There's not a lot of long form writing in pro wrestling. Like we really lay out a story. We talk to several sources. Here's the full piece. So you get a lot of news in pro wrestling kind of piecemeal. And when you're getting news very kind of piecemeal and you don't know the full context, you're waiting for the next news item to come along. So you're kind of weighing facts as they're thrown at you. And sometimes something can just slip in there that, because again, you're trying to follow these stories, as the news items coming out, you're like, well, that kind of seems like it could be possible, right? And so then you kind of keep the door open for wherever that choose your own adventure may go next, because you're just looking at this one item without really kind of knowing a whole lot of context or facts or validity or, whatever around it. And I think that's where we kind of get lost these days with, these small news items picking up wind and going everywhere, because again, we're getting all kinds of small news items thrown at us and just kind of picking the stuff that sounds right based off of our gut and, how valuable or valid you think the source is.
Do you think that and this is going to sound so dumb, but do you think some of the when it gets muddy, do you think that helps a little bit, or do you think it's all negative?
Helps how? What do you mean?
Piquing interest in people. The people. Does it create an engaging conversation? Does it?
I mean, you always want people talking about you, right? Some people are really they'll say anything to keep people talking about them, right? And I think that the question you're asking is more in the eye of the beholder, right? Some people just love anything being said about them. They don't really care, right? There's other people out there that when they see stuff incorrectly being reported about them, they can get very defensive. They can, they'll come at you. And I've had a couple wrestlers in my time come at me. Don't think that has not
only
happened.
Wrestlers, huh? Only wrestlers?
What are you going to say? Only fans? But ching? No, yeah. Only. I've had people in the business come at me for sure for things that have been said and written. But again, that's just if you're helping or not is really in the eye of the person who is the subject of the story. So it can be helpful. It can be hurtful.
Now, with your, House of Wrestling is obviously becoming, it is, but it's the growth has been tremendous the last, I guess, year or so, right? About a year.
Yep. Oh, well, we launched right before April 1st.
Yeah.
We've been around about 9 months.
About 9 months, and it is super impressive to see, where you take something, and obviously you have the background in, but you took something, you started from the ground up, and then you built it, and you have, it's not only just news, you also have a video element and a podcast element. It's an all encompassing. With adding programming and deciding the articles to write, do you have to sometimes space things out and say, well, I've written too much about WWE, or I have too much on AEW this week, this last couple days, I need to kind of mix it up. How does that work? Because that's something I've never done. So I'm always interested on the delivery of the news. Do you deliver it once it's confirmed, or do you wait another day?
Well, aggregation is interesting, right? It's an art, not a science, is what I tell my team all the time. Here's an example. So just this morning, obviously the Wrestling Observer newsletter comes out. You want to kind of parse through that, figure out what everybody's about to be talking about coming out of whatever Dave reported. You're going to want to, for stuff that I know I'm not going to be able to immediately get any comment on, we usually write it up as a report or backstage news or whatever. We put that on the site to get the conversation going around whatever that is. And then, of course, my work begins trying to figure out more about whatever this is, or being able to say House of Wrestling has confirmed or whatever in the articles. I don't like I don't like it when it's all WWE or AEW or New Japan or whatever. So we do try to vary the stories as much as possible. Obviously, when a big story takes hold and there's a bunch of content coming out all at once about one thing, you kind of gotta follow that. It was a big week for Punk news. But then with the stories about Dave, the Observer stuff, I don't like to pull every story, right? Just the stuff that I know that we're going to be talking about, right, on the shows or whatever, stuff that I can kind of get into. And I don't like to run a lot of one kind of source, stories all at once. Like we could run like 5 Observer newsletter stories in a row this morning, but I don't think that's a good look. If you want all Observer stuff, there's a wonderful website. It's called the Wrestling Observer. I'm a subscriber. I encourage you to go subscribe to the Wrestling Observer and support that community. But we want to be able to provide you a little bit more outside that scope. So little social interactions like the stuff with Dominic and Punk going back each other. That's a nice thing you can toss into the mix. Other websites that have news that are coming out, put that in between the stories. Is there a crazy exclusive we can put in between these stories? Whatever we can do to provide people a variety of quality content, that it's not all just one place or one opinion or one company. We do try to provide that variety over at House of Wrestling.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think the variety. Like I do very niche product, like Mat Men. We do the interview series, which I love doing because it's generally people that I enjoy in wrestling. Like I don't like doing an interview with someone that I don't know, right? Like in the weeds, Joel Pearl had Rocky Romero on today. I've had Rocky on a couple times, but it was such a pleasant time to have a conversation with him. It was natural. It was like, oh, we spoke online and like, oh, you want to do a show? We did a show. I don't like doing scheduled things like, oh, the publicist contacts us and there's a WrestleMania thing happening and, you could have so-and-so on. It's never anything. It's just 20 minutes of me asking questions I don't want to ask.
Sure.
And, and I'm honest about it. We had the New Day on and it was about Snickers or whatever it was. We had Enzo and Big Cass on, and I could have had such a great interview with both of them because Northeastern guys. Big Cass grew up in my neighborhood. He played basketball for the local Catholic school down the block from me. I would have loved to sit there and just talk to him about nonsense like that, and I can't because I have to, ask the questions about, what are your top 3 WrestleMania moments, But I like doing this series because people, they see your post, right? They see what Nick Hausman writes. They don't really, they can listen to you, but that's a fraction of the person that's seeing that tweet. It's getting aggregated all around Twitter. They don't really get to know you. And I think it's really important, especially for the people in this community that are, upstanding, like good people, not a-holes. There's plenty of those. I think it's important to get it out there and kind of find out, like, what's your thought process like? What is your work process like? What do you do? What do you like?
What do I do? What do I like? I like watching wrestling in the morning and spending my evenings with my wife and dog. I live a pretty normal life.
How dare you live a normal life? A normal, functional, balanced life.
I live a pretty, I grew up in a household with a pretty regimented work schedule. I've had regular normal sales jobs in the past, and I know what a normal work life is like. And I try to do that. I'm up by, try to be up by 6:30, get the day going, start to look at what everybody's looking at before them, get the news out as soon as possible, do fun stuff like this to get the word out, do my show. And then in the afternoon, I try to wrap up by 4 or 5. I have a couple guys, Nick Miller and Ennis McVeigh, who have been helping me at nights and stuff. But we're not doing live results of Raw and SmackDown over at House of Wrestling. No offense to anybody who else does that. I understand it. At some point, when we get big enough, we will be doing that, right? But at the moment now, while we have the resources that we have, I'm just focused on the big stories, man. You wake up the next day, you're gonna have seen a bunch of coverage about an angle that happened on Raw, but you come over to House of Wrestling the next morning, we're gonna be talking about what happened with that angle, why it happened, right? Like we're going to be having those conversations over at the house for now. So, I try to live. I don't want to get burned out. I'm 38. I know my limits. I'm kind of I don't want to say I'm curmudgeon-y because I think I'm a pretty outgoing guy, but I know what's going to burn me out and make me unhappy, and nobody's going to make any money then. So I try to live a pretty normal life, have a pretty normal schedule, and I encourage everybody out there to do the same thing. Take your breaths, take your walks. Keep it cool. We're all just trying to do a job.
I'll give you a little piece of advice. The watch-alongs, okay? I did watch-alongs throughout the entire pandemic.
Okay.
It was fantastic for numbers. It was mental distress for me, where I can no longer do it. I was dying. those 5-6 hour marathon shows were so brutal that I have difficulty even talking about the pay-per-views the next day.
Yeah.
It exhausted me so much to do that. And I found my limit. Like you said, I found out what my limit was. And I was like, you know what? I can't do that. That's not for me anymore.
No, I do a noon Eastern 5 days a week show. It's so wonderful. I get to work in the morning. I do my fun little show in the afternoon while everybody's drinking coffee and hiding out in their cubicles. And then we all go back to our lives. I'm
going to tell you, MG, my producer here, this is preaching to the gospel for me. This is how honestly, 10:30 a.m. People are like, how come you don't do like peak time, like do the show live? And I'm like, I got to do the show when I'm mentally prepared to do the show. Mm-hmm. By 1, 2 o'clock, and this is a little insight, from 11 to like 3 o'clock is hell on earth for me. This is when all my emails come in. This is when everybody has a problem from like the day before, and I have to now troubleshoot 80,000 different things. But before that time, things are great. I have no stress. So I record at 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning every day. Or whatever we do the show, Do you think, for the direction that you're going with House of Wrestling, do you think it's going to be video, audio, or is it going to continue, the strength in coverage is going to be, obviously writing out the articles?
My focus is on news right now. We're on like I said, we're having a hot hand right now when it comes to news. People are looking for more news from us. That's where the interest is at. So I'm not trying to go against the stream there. That's what people want. They want me writing about news. I'm doing my best to get everybody news. We will be doing more video and podcast stuff. I'm super happy with Rumor and Innuendo. It has been wonderful working with Ad Free Shows and Conrad Thompson's team to get it together with the nice graphics, nice opening video, all of that stuff we've got going over there. Working with Robert's been great. I have a different mindset towards how pro wrestling podcasting can be done that I don't particularly want to talk about out loud because I have some fingers in some pies elsewhere. But I think there's more money to be made doing pro wrestling podcasting differently, and hoping to get a nice big project going here in early 2024 to kind of better show everyone what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I 100%. I agree with you. And what's fascinating to me is that there's a whole different element, right? Like, you cover wrestling, I cover wrestling. We do, like, I'm a radio guy. I don't look at the camera because I like the voyeuristic feel of you watching me do this, the old Howard way. Yeah. I like a little creepy, right?
Weirdo.
Little spy cam. I can make a website, 24-hour stream of the studio.
Gross. All right,
Nothing
whatever.
happens here. It's just me walking down here, disheveled in the morning. Nothing fun happens in this room. But maybe, I don't know. Too many cameras, dude. I can't. I'm afraid my producers are constantly watching.
I don't even know what we are talking about anymore right now. I'm so uncomfortable.
Well, you went into like a voyeuristic thing. I said I like the voyeurism. I like people watching and me not seeing them. Oh, it's getting a little weird. How'd you make it weird? God.
You're the one who dropped the word voyeuristic like you were watching me in a peephole from the ceiling.
You never know. That's how I get my scoops, dude. Everybody thinks I'm sitting down. Yeah, I'm literally just peeping into rooms.
Stealing my gimmick, buddy. I was joking. Now you're gonna do it my way. Well, then steal my bit. Fine.
Is that what you do? Is that your gimmick?
Dude, I live in Phil Brooks's attic. He doesn't even know it. It's just me crawling around amongst his Christmas ornaments.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a story about. I'll say it off the air because I got such a huge scoop one time at a steakhouse by a bartender. And I was like, this guy's an idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's like, oh, wrestling. I don't know how the conversation came up. I think I was talking to somebody else. He's like, oh,
sure.
So-and-so was here recently. And I'm like, I don't think so. And he's like, and you know what he said to me? And then he laid this whole thing out. And I was like, I don't think so. And it happened. I guess somebody got drunk and told the bartender everything and nobody knew.
Isn't that great?
It's hysterical. It's amazing. But
I should open a bar in Stamford. That'd be the best way to do it. If I just had a bar in Stamford, I'd probably know everything.
By the new building. Have you seen it? It's stunning.
I have the SmackDown, or what is it? It's not Smack Chow or something like that. Chow Down. I don't know what it's called.
Chow Down. Unbelievable. But what do you think
Amazing.
is missing in this? Like I do a radio style show. A lot of other YouTubers do a very YouTube-esque style rundown, and we've seen success with that. Where do you think it kind of is? Do you think it's a balance of both of those as far as the media goes for wrestling?
What do you mean? Just like as far as like content creation and actual
Yeah,
journalism?
yeah,
It is it is very blended these days. If you're reporting news, your comments, on it as well. It's pretty much the standard. It's like what's kind of expected, right? You look at Dave, you look at Wade, you look at Mike, you look at Sean, up and down. If you're reporting the news, people want to like hear you talk about what it is you're reporting and what maybe you're hearing a little beyond what you're putting down in words on
yeah.
on the paper. So it's very, very muddled. It's obviously very, very muddled in the pro wrestling space.
I would love to know, how did you get into wrestling? What was it for you? 'Cause we're the same
Well,
age, so we grew up in the same generation.
yeah. No, I was probably 91, 93. Is when I kind of started getting into it. Back when we had VHS tapes on the Take One video shelves. We didn't have a Blockbuster. So I fell into it as a kid like that. I fell out of it late in high school, and then when I was doing comedy in Chicago, I had a friend who exposed me to independent wrestling at a warehouse when I was like 19, 20, and had got involved. Had some dude give me a couple choke slams that are probably the reason I have spinal stenosis now, and just it all kind of spiraled from there. It's only been a very short period of my life where I really wasn't a wrestling fan. It came back pretty quick.
I'm trying to think mine. SummerSlam 91, I was there. And that kind of solidified, like, oh, wow, like a live event like this. It was tremendous. And I had, my father was into it. My grandfather was a bodybuilder. My uncle was into it. He would sneak us into the Coliseum when we were kids. So for me, it was always there. I feel the same way. I think everybody kind of drops off a little bit after high school and college, and then they kind of get back into it, and something big happens, and it kind of draws people in. Over the last decade, what would you say was the biggest thing to bring back disenfranchised fans or just fans of the past? Is there one thing that you could think of that really piqued people's interest to come back into wrestling?
I mean, you would think that it was Roman, right? I mean, if you had to pick one thing, it would be the rise of Roman Reigns. Everything seems to have built around the rise of Roman Reigns. People were coming out of the pandemic. It was one of the first things that people could really kind of get back outside and do again, is like as far as a big group goes. I think WWE really owned that lane. And I think the rise of Roman Reigns has been really fun to watch. I think, integrating people like Bad Bunny and Logan Paul into your product is probably not hurting them right now. And then finding these stars that you could build around, like Sami Zayn and Jey Uso, and obviously Cody Rhodes was a big part of that ride. But if I had to pick one thing to say that really pushed this whole movement to where it is, it's got to be the bloodline stuff. It's got to be Roman and Paul Heyman, and the interest started there.
It's amazing to me because I feel like that program was more, and listen, a lot of people around me, they're dads, right? They're all in their 40s and late 30s and 50s. I would say the bloodline 100% brought these people back because their kids got into it and they watched it, and it was like, oh, this is really good stuff. It was captivating television. Before that, I would say the Bullet Club, shockingly.
Bullet Club, that's a really good indicator. Bullet Club Elite. I mean, obviously the launch of AEW, the enthusiasm that came from that. I guess I'm talking more just the WWE focus would be on the Roman stuff. But yeah, if you're talking about the re-intrigue in the industry as a whole, I mean, of course, yeah, the launch of AEW brought all kinds of people back.
I hope they stay.
I hope they too. I hope they do too. I don't know how they feel about, blood being spat in the other person's mouth, or Adam Copeland telling Christian to go F himself without being censored, or whatever it may be. I mean, they're very different products right now, but I do think that overall the industry is growing. I think it's a very strong time for pro wrestling as a whole, despite some of the day-to-day, week-to-week arguments that pop up.
Yeah. Before we wrap up here, I want to ask you about this possibility of CM Punk and Steve Austin
Okay.
I was about 5 days ago. Was it Monday or Sunday? I can't remember. It might have been Monday or Sunday. Somebody said, "Hey, this is possible." And I said, "Well, are you saying it's possible because he's there?" He goes, "No, no, no. The conversations have happened. People are talking about this." And I'm like, "In what way?" And they didn't know. They didn't. This was not someone that's in this deep conversation about this. I think he or she had heard it in passing. I'm very intrigued by this. And, if you're trying to grab Punk and you're negotiating and you throw in a Steve Austin WrestleMania match, you may be more inclined to take that deal,
Look, I know, I know both these guys. I'm like, I've never heard him. I've never heard either of these guys say anything less than very positive things. Kept the door open to this scenario. Now that we are in a world where CM Punk is back with WWE, where Steve Austin has proved that he can go out there and deliver a more than serviceable match at WrestleMania. I don't know why these guys wouldn't jump on this big bag of money that's being put in front of them. I mean, it has all the hallmarks of something Tony Khan and TKO and Ari Emanuel are going to love. I'm maybe overly optimistic that it's probably going to happen. I've been asking people about it, and nobody's denied it. I'll put it that way. I've had people be like, "What? How'd you hear about this?" And I'm like, "Look at what Sap wrote. How do you think I heard about it?"
Yeah. I posted a this is a possibility post, right? Because I don't have the story. It's just something that somebody said to me, which I hear a lot of things. Same with you. Sometimes it's not something you could report. You don't have any way to confirm it. You could dig deep, and that's what you guys do great. But I find this very interesting because, listen, you get one or two opportunities like this. And fortunately for AEW, they had CM Punk, and they created some really interesting moments. But unfortunately, they weren't able to create the big one that everybody wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in the cards, to see that Kenny Omega Punk match or the Bucks and the Bucks and Kenny versus FTR and Punk. That did not happen, and it's unfortunate that it didn't because I think that would have been a big money program for them. At the end of the day, WWE has this unique opportunity to make good on CM Punk, use this as an optical warfare against AEW, and say, "Hey, listen, all of you guys that are very upset there, this guy was a lunatic with you. And he was a lunatic with us, but now he's back, and look how happy he is. Look what we've accommodated. We're giving him Steve Austin. Look what we could give to you." I think that says a lot.
Dude, can you imagine Punk Austin, The Rock, Roman Reigns, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, whatever? I mean, it's gonna be a loaded WrestleMania, is my prediction.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing? We were talking about Cody, and we have not mentioned Cody once, right? The last time we did a show, it was...
Look, Cody, I think, is in a good spot right now. I think Cody's wisely kind of stepping back and letting things play out around him. I mean, Cody's still a massive,
tremendous,
massive draw. Cody's got to know that when his time with Punk comes, they're going to make a lot of money together. I think that fans are very much on the hook for Cody. He's done a wonderful job Pied Pipering them, but I have to believe that Cody Rhodes is happier than a pig in crap right now because of the situation that he finds himself in. And I would not be pushing myself to be front of the line right now. I'd let everything play out and, find your spot, which he's doing very, very well.
I hope it all plays out positively. Mm-hmm. At the end of I hope we get to see all these awesome things.
I will say this. When I was talking to people about Punk over in WWE, it was like, and I was like, yeah, are some people unhappy? Like, I got a couple people that were like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, if they're told to do their job and show up, that's what they're going to do. Right. And it was just so matter of fact. And that's not the space Punk has been for the past couple years. Right. And it'll just be different. Be interesting.
Yeah. I'm very curious. And also, what kind of shorts is he going to wear? You need to get that scoop. Is he going to wear the undies? Is he going to wear the long boys? Or is he going to wear the Muay Thai shorts?
I kind of like the, I'm a Muay Thai shorts guy myself.
Me too.
I like, but whatever. He's not. I don't think he's going to listen to me when it comes to gear advice. I think that man's going to do whatever he wants.
I think you should. Since you're in the attic, I think you should go down there and take all the other gear out and just leave him with the Muay Thai shorts.
You got it, boss.
Okay. Thank you. Guys, this was awesome. I absolutely love having Nick on. I want to do this more often because
sure.
We talk about some fun stuff. We talk about some serious stuff, and then we talk about me being a creep with my voyeurism with my camera setup. What's going on down there? Nick, where can people find you?
In the attic of CM Punk's house. No, you can find me House of Wrestling, HAUS of Wrestling.com, just like on the mic flag. Rumor and Innuendo, noon Eastern, all the House Wrestling platforms, ad-free shows at WWE Creative _ish. You can live stream us there. I love working with Robert, and of course, Rumor and Innuendo on whatever podcast platform you like. I really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for having me today,
No,
Andrew.
Absolutely. Rich and I are going to be back on Sunday with a double header. We're going to do Matmen, and then we're going to do Wrestling Observer Live later on in the day. So you can stay tuned and watch that. Matmen will be on all the Matmen channels, and obviously Observer is on the Wrestling Observer website. Until next time, bye-bye for now.